I'm in the process of building this combination shed and greenhouse on my property in New Jersey. In this episode, I'll explain a late design change, install the rafters, and finally, the polycarbonate roof panels on the greenhouse to make it rain tight. All right, first thing I did was kind of lay out the panels, but actually the first thing I did was label the outside. The outside has the UV protection on it, so it's very important that that goes up towards the sky. That's what will keep the panels from deteriorating in the sun. And this is the coating on the outside. In fact, it's labeled out there. It says UV resistant side. So but the problem is that coating kind of fell off some of the panels because they've been in my shed for all summer. Yes, I got these in the spring. I was expecting to be able to get it all done in the spring, but I didn't. So I've been storing these panels in here in the shed. And so I'm very happy to actually get going here. Now, what I've done is I've laid out all the parts that I'm expecting to use. This is going to be the sidewall against the shed. There's going to be the ridge across the top, and then there's a joiner in between the two. And so when I look at the spacing of it all, this way I can make sure that this is definitely going to overhang the edge. In fact, it'll probably overhang by at least an inch, which is good. And the middle here, because this is a 4-foot panel, I needed to lay this out so that I could see where this middle piece is going to go. A screw will go right down through the middle here. This is a joiner piece. They call it kind of an H. That will cause some space to be between the two panels. So I need to make sure, and I measured from the sidewall over to here, and I basically just need an extra 1/2 inch. So instead of putting this rafter right at 48 inches, I'm gonna put it at 48.5. That's all. You'll never notice it, but that way it'll be nice and centered there. Now, they were kind enough to send me this guide here, Building with Polycarbonate 101. It is a PDF. I will put a link to it on my website. Check the video description for more information if you want to take a look at this ahead of time. But what I'm going to show you, it's two things. First, this F channel on the side is really meant for outside edges. But what I'm going to do, because it's against the building, I'm going to put it in upside down. So that's a little non-standard. And then the trim from the shed is going to overlap this and make sure no water gets back here. And the other thing that I need to think through is the way the poly ridge cap goes. So they show it here to use a ridge beam, a double ridge beam that is mitered. Now, I already have my rafters cut so that there's no ridge beam. So these would actually be spaces in between the rafters, which is not a problem. The big thing is, you know, they're meant to be mitered like that to match the pitch of the roof. I attach the greenhouse to the shed with 4 long screws that can easily be removed to separate them if I need to move it later. I nailed the walls into the base and added a cross piece to hold the walls plumb before nailing the corners. I built the ridge beam from 2 2x6 boards nailed together and mitered at the top to match the pitch of the roof. I used a level to mark the length of the ridge in place and then cut it to length. I couldn't get the nail gun close enough to attach the first 2 rafters, so I drilled pilot holes and used screws to attach them instead. Thankfully, I had no issue using the nail gun for the rest of the rafters. I trimmed the F-channels so the 2 pieces would fit closer at the ridge and use less caulk. I slid the F-channels under the loosened trim boards to act as flashing against the shed. Any rain that comes off the roof will hit the drip edges and go over the trim boards instead of behind them. I attach the F-channels to the rafters with 3/4 inch lath screws that have a wide head that grips the channels well, and they won't damage the polycarbonate panels. I notched the bottom of the ridge channel so it would fit over the F-channels, and then I installed it with silicone sealer and those same lath screws. Next, I installed support pieces between the rafters that would keep the polycarbonate from sagging and provide additional attachment points. I prepped the roof panels by blowing any dust out of the cavities between the polycarbonate walls. Then I installed aluminum tape on the top edge to prevent any dirt or insects from getting in the panels from the top. This double-sided foam tape is needed anywhere the panels would touch wood. It's not needed wherever the panels will sit in a plastic channel. This was especially challenging for me because I stained the rafters to match the floor, and the foam tape wouldn't stick to the stain. The other challenge was getting the 4-foot wide panels into both the ridge and side channels at the same time. It would have been very helpful to have another pair of hands, but I managed to get them in by myself using a thin putty knife. After I was happy with the position, I attached the panels using special screws and washers from the polycarbonate store. I slid the H-channel into place before installing the second panel the same way. A U-channel gets installed at the bottom to keep insects out, but also let the panels drain any moisture that might collect in them. The last step is to apply a small bead of silicone sealer to every seam to make it weatherproof. On the back side, I decided there was no way I could install 4-foot wide panels again since the front was closed already. So I decided to trim them to a better length that would work with gutters, and I also ripped them in half so that I could reach both edges without needing to get up on the roof. I used an oscillating multi-tool with a rounded, fine-tooth blade labeled for cutting plastics. In reality, it melts the plastic more than cutting it, but it got the job done. I cleaned up the jagged edges with a sanding block and used a shop vac to suck up the plastic bits instead of blowing them everywhere. When ripping a panel, it's important to cut it right next to the edge of a cell for strength. Installing the 2-foot panels was still a pain because the foam tape still wouldn't stick to the wood, and it was still challenging to get the panels in both channels at the same time. But it was much easier than dealing with 4-foot panels. Now, because I trimmed the length of the back panels, I also went back and trimmed the front side so they'd match. When I was done, you'd never know. Although there are 2 4-foot panels on the front of the roof and 4 2-foot panels on the back, you can't tell from the inside, and nobody would ever know if I didn't point it out. Thanks to the polycarbonate store for providing the roofing materials for this project. Check the video description for links to all these materials as well as to buy the blueprints. Next time, we'll finally close in the greenhouse by installing the sheathing and the windows. Stay tuned! Hey there, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be the first to know when new videos are posted. Look for HandyDadTV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and visit the website HandyDadTV for more great ideas and information.